Welcome to Simplified UPSC by PPP, where we listen, learn, and grow together. Detailed lecture notes in English and Hindi, plus practice questions for prelims and mains, only on our Telegram channel. Link in description. Like and subscribe for more.
Okay, welcome to the Deep Dive. This is the show we build specifically for serious learners. For those of you tackling comprehensive exams, where that foundational knowledge just has to be razor sharp.
We take dense source material, and today it's the big one, the NCERT texts, and we really try to pull out the essential knowledge you need.
Exactly. But before we jump in, I just want to say a massive, genuine thank you to everyone in our paid membership community. Your support is, and I mean this, it's the engine that lets us create this kind of focused content. So if you find this useful, and if you're able, please do consider hitting subscribe, liking this deep dive, and maybe even joining that membership. It helps more than you know.
It really does.
Now let's get to it.
All right. Our mission today is laser-focused. We're going deep into NCERT Class 11 Biology, Chapter 1, The Living World.
A classic.
It is. And we're not here for just the simple definitions. We are analyzing the nuances, the exceptions, all those critical distinctions that competitive exams love to use.
To separate the people who've memorized from the people who actually understand.
That's the goal. We're pulling out the facts that answer the why, not just the what.
Okay, so let's unpack this. What exactly makes something living? The book lists a few traditional features, right? Growth, reproduction.
Yeah, growth, reproduction, ability to sense the environment, metabolism, self-organization.
But the crucial point the source makes, and this is key, is that not all of these are truly defining properties.
That is the #1 distinction you have to grasp. A characteristic of life is something living things usually do. A defining property is something that is true for every single living thing, with 0 exceptions.
And importantly, not true for any non-living thing.
Exactly.
So let's start with the most obvious one, but the one that causes the first big problem. Growth.
Right. So growth is defined in 2 ways. It's an increase in mass, and it's also an increase in the number of individuals.
For single-celled organisms, especially.
Exactly. Now, in multicellular organisms like us or plants, growth is all about cell division.
And even there's a difference. Plants can keep growing their whole lives, right?
They have what's called indeterminate growth. Yes, it's continuous. Whereas in animals, it generally stops after a certain age.
Okay, and here's where the definition starts to get shaky. Because, well, non-living things grow too.
Precisely. Mountains, sand dunes, crystals, they all increase in size.
But it's a different kind of growth.
A totally different kind. They grow by accumulation of material on the outside, on their surface. Living things grow from the inside out.
So because of that exception, that external growth in non-living objects, growth itself cannot be a defining property of life.
It's a characteristic, but it's not the definitive test.
Okay, so growth is out. What about, well, the whole point of life? Reproduction. Surely that has to be a defining trait.
You would think so. It seems like the most logical thing. But again, the source material points out these critical exceptions.
Right, so reproduction is essential for a species to continue.
But it is not a defining feature of an individual living organism.
Why not?
Well, think about mules, or sterile human couples, or worker bees.
Ah, right. They are 100% alive.
Unambiguously alive. They're metabolizing, they're responding to their environment, but they cannot reproduce.
So reproduction fails the test as well. It's a functional characteristic, but it's not mandatory to be considered alive.
Exactly. So if growth and reproduction both have these holes in them, we have to look deeper. We have to look at the processes that are actually, keeping the lights on.
And that brings us to metabolism and cellular organization. Now, this is where it gets really interesting for exam purposes.
It does, because all living organisms are these massive, self-regulating chemical factories. They're constantly making and breaking biomolecules.
Thousands of reactions all happening at once.
And that sum total of reactions is metabolism. And this is universal. No metabolism, no life, period.
But then there's the nuance, the test tube distinction. We can do these reactions in a lab, in vitro.
Yes, and this is a point that often trips people up. A metabolic reaction performed in a test tube is considered a living reaction.
A living reaction.
But it is not considered a living thing.
Okay, why not? It's doing the chemical work of life.
Because a living thing isn't just a bag of chemicals. It's the system. It's the organization. The test tube lacks the fundamental context.
That's so.
The cell. And that's why the next step gives us our first truly unambiguous definition. Cellular organization of the body is the defining feature of life forms.
Because every living thing, without exception, is made of cells.
That's the hard line. Cellular structure provides the context for life.
But there's one more level, right? A sort of higher level property.
Yes, and that is consciousness.
Which sounds very philosophical, but in biology it has a very specific meaning.
A very specific meaning. It's the ability of an organism to sense its environment and respond to stimuli. Physical, chemical, biological, whatever.
And this applies to everything, even a single-celled bacterium.
Absolutely. That bacterium moves towards a nutrient or away from a toxin. That is a response. It's the most basic form of consciousness. So since all organisms do it, it is a defining property.
And then we humans get a special category.
We do. We are the only organisms known to possess self-consciousness, that awareness of oneself. It's the final, highest defining property of our particular species.
Okay, that is a fantastic clarification of the definition of life. Now let's talk about the sheer scale of it all. The diversity is just monumental.
It is, which is why we need a system to manage it. And that brings us to taxonomy.
The science of classification.
Right. It's the whole process of identifying, naming, and classifying organisms into groups. And we have to do it because we've identified something like 1.7 to 1.8 million species so far.
And the categories we use in that system are called taxa.
Correct. Singular is taxon.
I think sometimes it's easy to forget that taxa can mean very different levels of things.
That's a great point. Plants is a taxon, but so is wheat. Animals is a taxon, but so are mammals and dogs.
They're all taxa, just at different levels in the hierarchy, like nested boxes.
Perfectly put.
So let's quickly run through that hierarchy. It starts at the bottom with the most specific group.
It starts with the species. That's a group of individuals with fundamental similarities that can interbreed, like Mangifera indica, the mango.
And you group similar species into
a genus. So the genus Panthera includes the lion, the tiger, the leopard.
And you keep going up. Genera are grouped into a family, families into an order, then class, phylum.
Or division for plants.
And finally, kingdom.
Right. And for anyone studying for an exam, there is one absolutely critical rule about moving up this ladder.
This is the one you cannot forget.
Do not forget this. As you go up the hierarchy, from species towards kingdom, the number of common characteristics goes on decreasing.
Let's just sit with that for a second, because it can feel counterintuitive. A bigger category feels like it should have more in common.
It does, but it's the opposite. Think about it. You share almost everything with another human, another member of your species. But what do you share with a jellyfish?
We're both in the kingdom Animalia, so we're multicellular, we eat other things, and that's about it.
Exactly. The shared traits become fewer and far more general. Higher category means less in common.
That reframes the whole system. It's not just about sorting, it's about measuring relatedness.
Precisely. And our understanding evolves. That's why modern systems, like Whitaker's 5 kingdoms, moved fungi and bacteria out of the plant kingdom. We realized they were just too fundamentally different.
Okay, fantastic. So we've defined life, we've organized it. Now let's connect this to the kind of applied knowledge that shows up in these big competitive exams, using some of the linked previous year questions.
Yes, let's look at an application, Bio-fertilizers. This comes up a lot. The source mentions a few organisms, Agaricus, Spirogyra, and Nostoc.
And Nostoc is the key one here, right?
Nostoc is the star. It's a cyanobacterium, or blue-green alga. It's in the kingdom Monera. And its superpower is nitrogen fixation.
It takes nitrogen from the air, which plants can't use,
and converts it into compounds they can use, like ammonia. It does this in special, thick-walled cells called heterocysts.
So you have a specific organism from a specific kingdom using a unique piece of cellular machinery, the heterocyst, to perform a metabolic process that has huge agricultural importance.
It connects everything perfectly: classification, cellular biology, metabolism, and real-world utility.
Let's broaden out to ecology. Studying biodiversity is really studying ecosystems. The source pointed to a very specific physical characteristic of equatorial forests.
Yes, these forests have such immense biodiversity that it creates a unique structure. The source highlights that they are defined by tall, closely set trees whose crowns form a continuous canopy.
A ceiling of leaves, basically. And what's the ecological upshot of that?
That canopy becomes the most important factor in the whole ecosystem. It blocks almost all the sunlight from reaching the forest floor.
Creating different layers, different microhabitats.
Exactly. A highly stratified environment. The temperature, the humidity, the light, it's all different at each level. It's a physical structure created by an immense amount of biological life.
A great example of how biology shapes geology and climate on a local scale. Okay, last connection. Let's zoom all the way back down to the molecular level.
Back to metabolism.
Back to metabolism.
Yeah.
And the proteins that make it happen. Enzymes.
Right. Proteins are the workhorses. They're built from amino acids, and their function depends entirely on their complex 3D shape, which we describe in 4 levels of structure.
And in terms of sheer quantity on this planet, there are 2 proteins you absolutely need to know.
2 titans. First, in the animal world, the most abundant protein is collagen.
The structural protein. It makes up our connective tissues, skin, bones.
It's the scaffolding for the entire animal kingdom, so that makes sense.
But that's not the world champion.
Not even close. The global champion, the most abundant protein in the entire biosphere, plants, animals, microbes, everything, is an enzyme called ribulose bisphosphate carboxylase oxygenase.
Or RuBisCO, thank goodness.
Thank goodness. Its job is to grab carbon dioxide out of the air during photosynthesis. Its mind-boggling abundance just shows you the sheer scale of photosynthesis on planet Earth.
That's a phenomenal statistic to have in your back pocket. It really puts things in perspective.
It does.
So to summarize this whole deep dive, we've gone from what defines life. It's not growth or reproduction. It's cellular organization and consciousness.
Right, through the logic of taxonomy, remembering that common traits decrease as you go up.
And we've connected those core ideas to real-world applications in agriculture, ecology, and right down to molecular biology.
That's the level of integrated understanding you need.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for you to think about. The entire system we've been talking about, this whole idea of taxonomy, it's all rooted in evolution.
That's the ultimate takeaway. The source reminds us that every living thing is linked. We all share common genetic material, just to varying degrees.
So that hierarchy, species, genus, family, kingdom.
It's just a measurement system. The degree of genetic similarity is the ultimate test of relatedness. The distance between a species and its kingdom is really just a measure of time, a map of how far back you have to go to find that common ancestor.
Taxonomy isn't a set of static labels, it's a map of genetic history. An absolutely fantastic way to think about it. We sincerely hope this deep dive has armed you with the precise, high-stakes knowledge you need for your learning journey. And thank you again to all of our supporters for making this possible. If this was useful, please help us reach more learners like you. Subscribe, hit the like button, share your comments. And if you are capable, please consider joining our paid membership. It lets us keep delivering this kind of material directly to you. Until the next deep dive, keep learning.
And keep asking the tough questions.
Thanks for watching. Follow us on Telegram and Instagram. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.